Good morning, everyone. I am Dr. K. Pushpam, postdoctorate assistant professor in sociology. Now we are discussing about Buddhist revival. This topic, a narrative of Buddhism revival in India, can more accurately be traced back to the 19th century, and more a complex account of it would have to take stock of various Dravidian, anti-Brahmanical, and self-respect movements that, in various ways, impinged on the fortunes of Buddhism in India from the late 19th century onwards. The name of reformers such as Jyotiba Phule and much later E.V. Ramasamy Periyar are of course well known, but one can also point to other tendencies. Mahima Dharma, or the religion founded by Mahima Kusain, previously known as Mukunda Das, in Orissa in 1862, stood for the rejection of caste and idol worship, and Kusain embraced church Buddhist practices as begging for cooked food. Hussein's teachings were spread through many followers, none as famous as the blind Adivasi poet Bhima Boy, whose bhajans popularized Mahima Hussein's teachings. Ambedkar's closest forerunner may well have been Pandit Ayodhi Das, a Tamil Siddha physician who not only urged the untouchables, as they were then known, to view themselves as non-Hindus, as casteless Dravidians, but also set another example for them by taking a diksha at the hands of a Buddhist monk in Sri Lanka. Das went on to found the Sakya Buddhist Society in Madras. Various other tragedies fed into Buddhism revival, among them the arrival in India in 1891 of David Havatrin, more well known as Angharika Dharmabala, the restoration of Bodh Gaya, the site of the Buddha's enlightenment was undertaken at this behest, and Dharmabala also founded the Mahabodhi Society. Before Ambedkar's conversion in 1956 and the advent of what we might call Dalit Buddhism, the Mahabodhi Society, which also wrested control of Bodhi Gaya from the hands of its Hindu managers, would become the custodian of Buddhism fortunes. Dharmabala's visit to India coincided with a spurt of scholarly interest in Buddhism among Indologists, including such famous ones as the Sanskrit R.G. Bandhankar, and something of what might be called an antiquarian and spiritual interest in Buddhism among intellectuals and truth seekers in the West. In 1881, the Pali Text Society had been founded, and authoritative versions of Buddhist text soon came to be published and disseminated under its auspices. One convert to Buddhism in India who was to acquire considerable fame in later years was Dharmanand Kosambi, who was born in Goa in 1876 and was ordained as a Buddhist monk in 1902. Though his fame has been eclipsed by that of his son D.D. Kosambi, the most eminent Indian Marxist historian of his generation. Dharmanand Kosambi authored one of the most popular biographies of Buddha, Bhagavan Buddha, 1940, and still in print from the Bharatiya Vidya Bhavan. Ultimately, however, Buddhism's revival was the most to Ambedkar's alienation from Hinduism and his embrace of Buddhism, which by no means seemed inevitable to him even when he had empathetically denounced Hinduism in October 1956. That story has been taken up in great detail by Ambedkar's biographers and is now part of Dalit lore. And consequently, it will not be rehearsed now at any length. It is worth recalling that as late as 1929, when a group of Dalits threatened to convert to Islam or Christianity, Ambedkar did not really see Buddhism as a viable alternative for low caste Hindus. As he then wrote, no particular effect will be felt on the bullying of the so called upper caste by becoming Buddhist or Arya Samajist, so we see no meaning in the following this path. To successfully confront the domination of Hindus, we should become Christians or Muslims and win the support of a powerful community, and with this erase the mark of untouchability. One convert to Buddhism in India who was to acquire considerable fame in later years was Dharmanand Goswami, who was born in Goa in 1876 and was ordained as Buddhist monk in 1902, though his fame has been eclipsed by that of his son Dedi Kosambi, the most eminent Indian Marxist historian of his generation. Dharmanand Kosambi authored one of the most popular biographies of Buddha Bhagavan Buddha. Though Buddhism has gained adherents over the last 5 decades, Indian Buddhists are still relatively minuscule in numbers. Buddhism presence in India is, of course, another matter, with the landscape in many parts of the country still dotted with remains of Buddhist monasteries, Buddhist sculptural art, and other reminders of the supreme presence that Buddhism once occupied in Indian life. The hill regions of northeast India, Uttaranchal and Himachal Pradesh, as well as Ladakh in Jammu and Kashmir, are other areas where sizable Buddhist communities are found. Japanese tourists arriving in India to take the Buddhist pilgrimage route are writing yet another chapter of the history of Indian Buddhism, as are in more profound ways Tibetan Buddhists. There is a sizable population of Tibetan Buddhists to over 150,000 people in India, and the Dalai Lama heads the Tibetan government in exile at the hill station of Dharmasala. In the 12th and 30th centuries, as Buddhism was pushed further east and north, it eventually made its way to Tibet and found to refuge in the mountainous retreats of that country. It is thus perfectly opposite that Buddhism should now have come back to India from Tibet to nourish the soil on which it once grew. So these are the incidents for the Buddhist revival. Remaining part we can see the next class. Thank you.